MMA Today for tomorrow episode. I don't even know, but we're here. King is back. Big Boss Tone. What's going on?
What's up?
How's it going?
All right, let's begin with UFC Fresno. Let's review what happened over there. What do you guys think about the card overall?
I thought it was pretty solid for what it was. I mean, on paper, it wasn't supposed to be, I don't think, the best card ever. A lot of new up-and-comers, and I think that was kind of the story of the night. And it wasn't, it wasn't more evident than in the main event. Brian Ortega becoming a guy that's now in the title picture. Really impressive performance, one of the submission of the year candidates, and I think that and the Marlon Moraes knockout paired with Benito Lopez's great fight. And some solid undercard fights and finishes. It was an above average card in terms of entertainment, in my opinion. What do you think, Tone?
I liked the card. Ortega, there was kind of a shakeup at 145. Ortega knocks off Swanson, who you kind of felt like was going to get a title shot eventually. And now Ortega's kind of taking his spot. It's some insane BJJ showing off there. Jason Knight looked like shit. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if it's a bad weight cut, if he's having problems, or if Benitez is just that goddamn good. But he looked terrible. And then at the 135 division, you have Moraes come out and almost murder Sterling. Like, we didn't know if he was going to be okay for a good 20, 30 minutes after that knee landed. And good for him. He was former champion, over there at what used to be World Series of Fighting. And I think he's a real problem at 135, and should be getting that, hope if they don't do a freak fight with, TJ and Mighty Mouse, which I really hope they don't. Moraes is right up there in title contention. Alabama linebacker. Did you know he used to play football? Eric Anders, getting another big win, and Sukumta, who really coulda, woulda been 2-0, finally got his first win, and it was a really nice KO win
against a tough guy too. Luke Sanders is, I think one of the better up and comers at 135. Really underrated guy, and Sukumtath coming in there on short notice. He asked for it and he received it. That was a performance that stuck out to me as well.
Former CES champ out there in Nolan's neck of the woods.
Yeah, man. He's like the homebred guy out there. He's actually, I think his house is, CES always holds their events in Lincoln, Rhode Island, and Woonsocket is the town that he's from, and that's literally, a 2-minute drive from the Twin River Casino where CES holds them here. So
New England sounding town name ever.
Yeah,
say that again.
All the Native American stuff, and yeah, but he's if there's going to be a homebred guy for CES, he was the guy. He used to sell out, 2,000 tickets at the CES fights just to see him fight. So. I was happy for him to see him succeed and not get the axe. And Sanders will be back. I think he's still got, he's still a very solid fighter. So, yeah.
I don't know. I think Andre, he showed a lot in this fight. He showed that when he has his back against the wall, he comes out and proves that he belongs in the UFC. I think in the first two fights, he didn't show his real potential. You know what I mean? Yeah, he maybe he won, maybe he lost, but if you play like the UFC or MMA with ifs, then there's all kinds of ifs that can happen to any fighter, right? But this one, he really just came out and just been like, hey, I belong here. I'm gonna come out here. I'm gonna make some noise in the bantamweight division, and I'm glad for him because he is if you ever talk to Andre, he's like a real dude. He'll tell you that what's on his mind. So I really respect him in that aspect.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point, John. I think, he kind of matured as a fighter over these 3 fights. I mean, we went from his first fight, really tough battle, made a stupid mistake at the end and cost him the fight. He got taken down. Second fight, came in, was winning, then got really overconfident, and whether or not he should have won was controversial, whatever. He would have won that fight if he wasn't as overconfident. And then this one, which was a fight he was losing in, he stuck to his game plan and he counterpunched and he won. So that's all you can ask for in a prospect, is to have that type of evolution.
Another performance, I think, man, let's just talk about the main event, because just like, where can we go with these fighters? Because, Cub Swanson, his contract is up. Am I right?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. So, Dana White says, oh, we're going to get a deal done with Swanson and all this shit. But, you can't believe anything that motherfucker says, right? So,
well, I think the fact that he lost, and Dana kind of like, I think he thinks that now he can get Cub at a discount, and I don't think that's the case. I think these fighters realize now that they can go elsewhere and get paid, and test that what is basically MMA free agency. So I don't know. They're gonna have to actually pay him if they want to keep him, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Bellator's offer is going to be pretty solid. I think that, I don't need to tell you guys this. I'm sure you're well aware, but Bellator used to, be the promotion that would sign the guys that were on big losing streaks, and now they seem to be stealing those guys that just get to the top and then they lose. And that's where Cub Swanson's at. So I'm sure Scott Coker will be hurling a really good contract offer his way, and we'll see if Cub bites at it or if he wants to make one more push at the UFC belt.
I don't think he has it to win the belt, but, I could see him going to Bellator and maybe even fighting at lightweight, because they have a solid lightweight division right now with some beasts. Like him against like Michael Chandler, I think that would be an exciting fight. Other guys, Benson Henderson, exciting fights could happen over there. Swanson, he's done a lot in the division, so I don't know if he wants to stay.
I think also Ortega he had one fight left and he wanted to re-up his contract, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right about that one too, Tone. 2 for 2.
What about Ortega, man? This guy, I picked him to win by submission because Swanson, he has problems with longer, taller fighters.
You picked it. Did you think he was gonna win by submission like that though? Like with
I put it out there online, like my picks and stuff before the fights happened.
I know, but like, did you when you thought of like him getting the submission, is that how you thought of it playing out?
No, I thought that Cub Swanson was gonna make a mistake, and Ortega, just like he always does, capitalizes. But yeah, not like the way that he did, where he made
it was like
adjustments during the submission attempt.
It was like Cub couldn't even get close to him, because if they were in the clinch, like it reminded me of Damian Maia, where it's like you don't even want to get close to the guy, you want to keep your distance, because if you just even get close to him, he's gonna lock up something fucking weird and just get you like caught up, in his limbs and tap you out somehow, like any way possible. It was just freaky. Like I saw Cub getting like a little bit, too close, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. Like this is not gonna end well. And then he's tapping out like 5 seconds later.
The first submission attempt in the first round, where they showed the aerial view of his face, you knew that he was like, oh shit, this motherfucker got some strength in his arms. He's got some chokes right here, because he was fighting for his life at that moment. He's lucky that round ended, I believe, because, Ortega was very close in the first. But it didn't really matter anyways. The second round, he finished that fight. What do you think, Ortega? What do you think? He comes out after the fight. He's like, I'm going to respect Frankie Edgar and let him fight. Do you think that's a smart thing to say?
I was okay with it. I thought that whole post-fight speech was actually really good. I know people don't like the kind of the passive answers on things, but I thought his statement, like, about, I want to do things to help people, all that stuff, I thought that was pretty good. And I think he's going back to the roots of martial arts, being a really respectful, down to earth guy. So I'm okay with it. I don't think if he had gone on the mic and called out Max Holloway, I don't think it would have made a difference. I think the UFC was pretty set on giving Frankie Edgar the next shot. But I think it definitely, people are talking about it regardless. And if whether or not he sits out or he waits, whatever, he's right in that slot where he's either the next one after Frankie or, he fights one more time. And if he wins, he's the next one for Frankie. So not a bad place to be, especially where he's trying to renegotiate his contract. Not a bad place to be.
Are you telling me martial arts is about respect and not like,
I know we
telling
forgot that
to
recently.
fuck yourself and,
Yeah.
all these crazy antics and
Believe me,
whatnot?
I'm all for the Mike Perrys of the world and stuff like that too.
Oh,
But I think that it's I don't know. When we start migrating into the Colby Covington Mike like talk and stuff like that just like the really forced stuff I think bothers me. I see people on Twitter trying to, so and so should have called out, this person and why is he not taking control of the mic? And I get it to a certain extent. But at the same time, I think a lot of these guys aren't necessarily like, the WWE characters that some people want them to be. So I liked it. I think he's not.
To respond to that, Anders, didn't he call out Machida after his fight? And now
yes,
he's fighting Machida in the main event. So
and who broke that?
Call people out, right? Like you got to do it.
I'm all for calling people out. I just think sometimes they want people to be characters that they're not. I'm fine with the call outs. I don't have a problem with that. But so Eric Anders Machida. That's
who broke that? I forgot.
I don't know. I think it was that you, John?
Was that you?
Yeah.
Was that you? Like, it was you, right? Like,
yeah, it was,
yeah, of course. You know what I mean? Like I mentioned on Twitter, you're like the Baskin Robbins of MMA. You get the scoops. You got the scoops. You know what I mean?
That's a new one. I haven't heard that one yet.
Exactly. I'm coming up with new ones for you all the time, man, because you surprise me every week. You surprise me every week. Like something new, it happens. So, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, side note. Finally, what I heard is ESPN.com, what did they do? They credited you with that, which is a first.
They credited MMA Today.
Oh, MMA Today. Okay, MMA Today. Jim Edwards credited MMA Wizard for the scoop. If you saw that.
I did. Yeah. I was gonna say we had like a perfect sweep across the board of everybody giving us credit and not fucking up, but I guess that was just broken. So
hey,
close enough.
Close enough. Yeah, it's funny.
It's just funny, you know what I mean? Like, but
yeah, MMA Today.
Great. It's great. Come on, tell us something. Tell us something. Like, is there something in the works?
I don't know, man. We gotta start. I should start saving some of my stuff for this. That would be pretty good.
Ooh, yeah. Make people watch.
Yeah, I gotta
force them
next time. I always think about doing that, but I'm always afraid that whenever I sit on things for like 10 minutes, it always comes out. So it's one of those things. It's just fast and furious in the sport, and you got to kind of put things out when you can.
You're right. You're right. You know what? It happened to me a couple weeks ago. Like, I knew for weeks that the Road FC CEO was resigning. People didn't know, but I knew for weeks that this was going to happen. And I knew who the new CEO was going to be. But I sat on it. And then all of a sudden, it was released by somebody else. And I was like, these mother, So you I guess you can't keep it in, secret for too long. You got to release it because that's your job. That's our job, is to release the news on time. So good work, man, for real. Like, respect to you for all the scoops that you get, everything that you do. You know what I mean? That everybody's watching you. So that's a good thing.
I appreciate it, man. I think if it wasn't for MMA Today, I wouldn't really have an outlet to do it. I had this account for a while, and now I have a site to be able to put the actual reports out on. So it's a two-way relationship, and I think we got more stuff in the works. And these next couple of weeks, the UFC schedule is kind of looking a little slim. They're only booked a couple weeks into January, so I'm sure we'll get a ton of announcements in the next couple of weeks. And stay tuned.
We got a couple wacky awards too. We're gonna do some off the wall awards.
What awards do you want to add? Because I don't want to have awards that are just like the regular awards. Like, I want to add like special awards to it, so it's something unique. Of course you're gonna have Fighter of the Year and all that shit.
Well, I feel like we're doing that. Yeah, like we got some. I mean, obviously we'll talk about that off air, but like some of the good ones are gonna be like top regional promotion in the U.S. and outside the U.S. and top prospects, like who the hottest ring card girls are, stuff like that.
Are we gonna do that by region?
Yeah, we'll do regional ring card girls, for sure. I
Of
think
course.
Combate Americas might win that, at least in my opinion.
I don't know. Oh, Glory's not MMA, but man, Glory got some smoke shows like, like I can't even describe that. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. But
I
anyways,
feel like Nolan had like the perfect segue into the Mike Perry fight for the UFC Winnipeg, and then we like totally like steamrolled it.
oh, let's go back to Mike Perry. Did you watch The Road to the Octagon?
No,
I have not checked it out yet.
Yo, go watch just the Mike Perry one. Mike Perry will make you laugh.
Is this a day in the life of Mike Perry? Because that would be fucking hilarious.
No, it's just like he's just talking about Ponzinibbio, and it's just funny what he says. He doesn't even call Ponzinibbio by his name. He just makes up names for him. But he's talking about Ponzinibbio. It's just it makes me laugh. You know what I mean? Like he is one of those characters that you need in MMA. You know, it's just you have to have it. But what do you guys think about? But damn, I want to talk about that. Let's just talk about it. Fuck it. Okay, so let's just talk about Winnipeg. What do you think about that Perry versus Ponzinibbio matchup?
I mean, I think if you look at the UFC schedule, that might be the fight right now that I'm looking forward to the most. It's going to be a barn burner. I know we're not supposed to say the V word, but it's going to be very violent. And I think that I'm so high on on Santiago Ponzinibbio. I think he should be able to take it. I think he could actually finish Mike Perry. But Mike Perry brings that, that certain aura about him, like when we see heavyweights fight, where it could literally end at absolutely any time, and man, I just can't wait. I don't know about you, Tone, but
yeah, no, like I'm super stoked for it. I know a lot of people are taking Santiago on this fight, and I totally understand why. And I'm actually like not a fan. Not that my opinion matters, but I'm not a fan of Mike Perry outside of the cage, but like inside of the cage, I fucking love that guy. Like just the way he fights, his style and whatnot. And he's an incredible athlete, like an amazing athlete. Like he's been able to pick up some really technical shit in a very short amount of time. Like he was a brawler when he came into the UFC, like just a straight up brawler. And now he's using the clinch. He's throwing like elbows out of the clinch and all kinds of just like technical shit that you should not be able to learn like that fast. Like he's picking up stuff at an insane rate. And I'm not counting him out at all. I actually bet on him because he's quite the sizable underdog in this fight. Rightly so. I think Ponzinibbio is the more skilled fighter, but I don't think you can count Mike Perry out of any fight.
Mike Perry, man, I got Mike Perry winning this thing. And, the reason why is because Ponzinibbio has been knocked out before, and Mike Perry has not been knocked out. And I don't think Ponzinibbio is the guy to knock out Mike Perry. And Mike Perry, those elbows in the clinch is going to be key for Mike Perry against Ponzinibbio. Get him in tight and throw those elbows, and I think he could finish him with those same elbows, just like the Ellenberger fight. It could happen. Plus, Ponzinibbio is much taller, so those elbows can, for a taller guy, I think they'll be more effective against a taller guy. I think TKO, Perry.
Is that another sleeper? We saw Julian Marquez on the Contender Series. He had that head kick KO that went like viral. I think it was even on like SportsCenter, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on the top plays.
I think I might have helped get it on the top plays. But he's fighting Darren Stewart at 185, and that's damn good. I mean, this being a Fox card, like it is, I don't want to say too stacked, but it almost is, because like you feel like some of these fights should have gone to the kind of weak UFC 219, which is like the end year event, pay-per-view event. And you kind of think like maybe they should have stacked 219 instead of some random card in Winnipeg. No offense to Winnipeg, like, or the Canadians out there. I'm just saying.
What fights do you think should have been moved to 219?
Well, I mean, you could have put, just to add some depth, like you could have put like the Glover Serkinov fight, which is the big, fans love the big fighters. They're 205 pounders. You could have done McDessie, just to fill out some of the rest of even the Mike Perry fight,
Yeah, I mean, you think this card is supposed to originally have Jose Aldo on it too, so this was quite the stacked card from the start. Even with Aldo falling out, still every single matchup is interesting, I think, in its own way. I can't remember. We always have, not always, but frequently we have these cards, super cards, stacked cards. But I can't remember one that had every single fight be interesting to me. And looking at this card this weekend, there's not one fight that I'm like, I can kind of, I don't know, not pay attention, or if I have something to do, I can kind of do it at the same time. I liked all these fights. I'm just really intrigued, from Tim Elliott's fight against Pietro Manga. I think that's an awesome fight. I think Jared Cannonier's fight against Blachowicz. I mean, just everything from top to bottom. I'm extremely excited to see this, and East Coast time, loving it. Can't complain. Not staying up till 1 or 2 a.m. to watch, Tybura fight Verdum. So I'll be able to stay up and not be falling asleep, which is perfect.
Put yourselves in like the shoes of the UFC like top officials, I guess. What is the thinking behind stacking this card in Winnipeg, right? And then going into St. Louis. I mean, we just found out today. I don't know how concrete, Nolan will have a better idea of how concrete this is, but it seems like they're going to move the Jeremy Stevens Duho Choi fight to main event. That's a major, city in America that they're debuting in, and they're coming in super weak. And I guess, what could they be thinking here? What is the strategy, basically, that they're trying to execute?
I think that they screwed up, to be honest. I don't think there's much thought going into it. I think I was saying this to somebody else. I think like the new markets they've gone into recently, like, with the exception of Detroit, but if you look at the New York cards, even at the beginning of this year, Brooklyn, Buffalo.
Oh, the Brooklyn pay-per-view was terrible.
I feel like they're almost taking advantage of the fact that, hey, this is a new market. No matter what we throw on this card, people will come see it because we've never been here before. Whereas before they used to say, oh, we need to draw all these new fans in that have never gone to mixed martial arts cards, make them go to this and see how good it is. So that's kind of a flip I've seen since the WME purchase happened, where they seem to only make the cards really stacked in big markets that they already have. So I don't really know what's going on there.
Well, do you think some of it has to do with the fact that their deal with Fox is kind of up in the air right now? Like if they had a new partnership with either, or even with Fox, like if they renewed a new deal and that was kind of, more of a long-term thing, or with another company, another big, sports network, would they be putting more effort into these fight night cards?
That's really interesting. I hadn't really necessarily thought about it like that, but, now that you say it, that actually, seems to line up timeline wise. In the last couple of months, it seems like the Fight Night, Fox Sports 1 Fight Night cards have kind of dwindled in quality, while they've increased in quantity. And I mean, with the exception of this UFC on Fox Winnipeg card, I feel like there hasn't been one that's really wowed us in a while. On paper, I shouldn't say, there hasn't been great in fight nights, but even, next month, St. Louis and then Charlotte, North Carolina too. It's a big Fox show, and I think it's kind of struggling in terms of matchups right now.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like, maybe it's the UFC losing some of their, the top fighters to other promotions that they could have used, like, like a Rory McDonald, a Gegard Mousasi. I mean, those guys are main eventers. And because you don't have those guys to fill in the cards, that's why it becomes a little bit weaker and weaker as time goes. And as time goes, more fighters are going to leave, and these UFC cards are going to become weaker and weaker. It's just going to happen. On top of them stacking all those other cards with three title fights You know, like I'm not a fan of that 3 title fight thing, especially. You know, like even 1 title fight is good, 2 title fights is fucking phenomenal, but 3, you gotta fucking spread out.
Yeah, you
Well,
end up having
I think they feel like they have to do that because of the title fights that they're stacking up. The champions that they have, they're not like the super marketable, ones that they could just put one on a card and get, enough pay-per-view buys to be able to justify, a Madison Square Garden type event. They just don't have like, you know, those stars. I mean, and the other promotions. I mean, I'll just say it. Like, well, Bellator has an event this weekend, and it's tape delayed, of course, and it has 2 other not huge names like Giga Mousasi and Roy McDonald, but Mayday McDonald and Valerie Letourneau are both making their Bellator debuts, and nobody's probably gonna watch it because it's fucking tape delayed and it's running right into UFC Winnipeg.
Yeah, what's up with all that tape delay shit?
God, I don't know. Coker's been asked about it a bunch of times, so they're aware, at least.
Is it
I
a
feel like
network problem?
that's what I'm guessing. I don't think they could be that. I don't want to say stupid, but that's stupid to not realize that this is a huge problem for people in the U.S. and some of the cards too. It's not like you're gonna have to put it on at 2 a.m. Like I think the Italy card last week was on like during the day. They could have done an afternoon card. I'm sure they would have had a hand just as many people tune in at night or around that. I don't think it would have made that big of a deal, but I think it adds some more legitimacy to their promotion when I try to avoid all the spoilers and stuff, and it's just impossible.
It's so impossible.
So,
yeah,
I don't know, man.
You like when you talk to the casuals that want to watch Bellator. Like I have a friend, he watches the UFC and he wants to watch Bellator, but the thing is, it's not easy to access Bellator, and like you said, the tape delays don't help. And it's just like after a certain while of wanting to watch it, you just give up. And that's what's happening, I think, to the fan base for Bellator is like they're not able to access it easily. And these tape delays don't help. And like I don't even know what kind of TV deal you guys have for Bellator. Where Bellator's on Spike TV?
Yeah, it's on Spike.
It's about to be rebranded.
Oh yeah, it's rebranded, right? So what channel is that?
It's gonna be called Paramount, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, Paramount's the Rory McDonald fight in LA, which I'll be at. Is gonna be the debut of Bellator on the new Paramount network, and hopefully that move brings along with it the end to a lot of the tape delay. I know they released the app, to combat, at least with domestic cards, the West Coast would get Bellator events like 3 hours later. But that's kind of like just a Band-Aid. And they need to, I mean, the solution's out there. The solution's out there. They know it. I'm sure it's just a matter of getting the executives at Viacom to understand that it's an issue.
Let's go back to the UFC on Fox 26 and talk about the main event a little bit. Robbie Lawler versus Dos Anjos.
You're just gonna skip over Ricardo Lamas like that? No respect? Damn.
No, I was gonna move that. I was gonna shift that to the next thing, but I'm just saying. Okay, let's go. Ricardo Lamas, Josh Emmett. This is like a opportunity. Let's say, not as big as the Jason Knight versus the guy that he beat or the guy that beat him, but it's at that level. It's like Josh Emmett, he's good, but he's getting this huge opportunity as a co-main event against Ricardo Lamas, which is what's he ranked, like number 2, number 3 in the division?
Is he number 2? Number 3? Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about this? Do you think Emmett has what it takes to beat Lamas?
Hell no.
Nah, I don't either. I think we kind of had the y'all must have forgot moment with Ricardo Lamas last fight. I mean, the fact that he was an underdog against Jason Knight just goes to show you that, he's one of the more underrated fighters in the division and underappreciated guys. He's only ever lost. I was looking at his UFC record. I think he's had 3 losses in the UFC, and one was to Max Holloway, one was to Jose Aldo, and one was to Chad Mendes. So in his 12 UFC fights, he's only lost to 2 featherweight champions and a perennial =1 contender. So watch out for him. I think Emmett is a tough guy. You could throw him against anybody in this division, he'd do well. But I see him surviving the 3 rounds. I don't think Lamas will finish him, but I don't think it's going to be a fun night for Josh Emmett.
Yeah, Lamas is probably one of the most well-rounded fighters in the division, and it's hard to beat him at that game because he's so well-rounded. And Emmett is not like he's just exceptional in one aspect, and that's what you need to beat. I think Lamas is to be exceptional, like when Mendes knocked him out, right?
Mendes knocked Lamas out. I believe. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's been around since the WEC. He's fought. All his losses are to the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
They're not gimme losses. I have a soft spot for the WEC guys. I get really.
Oh, of course, man. That's old school.
Yeah, I get really biased, but I don't know. I think Lamas is just fucking elite. And Josh Emmett, his if he had, he doesn't have an elite skill, but if you were to kind of rate one of his tools, as his best one, it'd be his wrestling. And I don't think that really plays into this fight that well.
Yeah, I think Lamas gets the unanimous decision. Just puts on a clinic against Emmett. Emmett might have his little spurts, but other than that, I haven't really been watching Josh Emmett too closely, but I know that he's not good enough to beat Lamas. So that's it, man. Let's move on to the Robbie Lawler. Now, do you believe Robbie Lawler is going to beat Dos Anjos?
I've gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth about this one. I honestly, if RDA won, wouldn't shock me. If RDA won inside the distance, wouldn't shock me. If Robbie won inside the distance, wouldn't shock me. If Robbie won by decision, wouldn't shock me. So honestly, man, I think anything's possible in this fight, but something just told me yesterday when I was really thinking about it that I think that Robbie's going to steal it. I don't know why. I didn't think he looked super good in his last fight. I thought he looked pretty good for a guy that had a long layoff, but I don't know, man. I never want to count Robbie Lawler out, I guess.
Lawler is the perfect fighter to beat Dos Anjos. The reason why is Dos Anjos loses to power punchers, and Robbie Lawler is the cream of the crop of power punchers. And, and I think that he's going to knock out Dos Anjos. Because if you look at who beat Dos Anjos, Eddie Alvarez beat Dos Anjos, power puncher, if you think about it. Jeremy Stevens, power puncher, knocked him out. And those are kind of like my examples of who can beat Dos Anjos, right? And Robbie Lawler is just the upgrade from those guys. And he's going to go in there and just violently put reality to Dos Anjos. Because he's getting a lot of hype, right? Dos Anjos is getting a lot of hype in the division because they were saying that he was going to fight for the title next against Woodley. You remember that? And I thought that's fucking blasphemous or whatever you say it. I don't know. I can't say those words.
Close enough.
Yeah, it's blasphemy or whatever, right? I've been in Korea for too long. I can't say those words.
I feel like RDA is getting a lot of hype right now. Like he is the favorite coming into this fight. I wasn't super impressed with his debut at 170. And then, his last fight, he just kind of got, and not to downplay, his performance or anything, but he did get a favorable matchup in Magny. Just somebody that does not match up with him well, and he was able to just, breeze through him. And we really didn't get a chance to see, much in that fight. I think it lasted like 90 seconds. But these guys, man, I don't think, particularly the 2 guys that have come up recently, and Cowboy and RDA, I just don't think that they fit in this division. Lawler is one of the smaller guys at 170. And you could tell at the weigh-ins he was significantly taller. He's got the reach advantage, obviously. And I think he's just going to bully RDA. The one thing that does give me pause is the fact, that as if the fight was to go on into those championship rounds, RDA has a killer gas tank. And, I'm just not sure, especially with his, he's got nasty leg kicks as well. And he could just eat away at Lawler to the point, where he gets like a late stoppage or wins, a decision. So I'll get more nervous as the fight goes on. But as it stands right now, I'm pretty confident that Lawler can get the finish, in the first 3 rounds.
All right, man. Let's shut it down, and then we're gonna go to another one, and let's do UFC 219, and then we'll be on our merry ways. All right, I'll send another link to you guys.
Sounds bueno.